So good morning. My name is Megan Dumont. I'm a program analyst in the Division of Teaching and Learning here at the Office of the State Superintendent of Education in Washington, D.C. I'm excited to welcome you today for our pre-application technical assistance webinar for the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant, specifically the K-12 subgrant. There is a separate session today for the Birth to Age 5 grant. If you feel your organization is actually eligible under that subgrant and not this one, feel free to leave and send me an email or send an email to aussie.clsd@dc.gov, and I will help you to get the information for that meeting, which will happen this afternoon.
Okay, you don't need it with her?
I can log in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so our agenda today, we'll have our welcome and the housekeeping. We'll go over important dates, the background of the CLSD grant, the grant requirements, application review process, then we'll have a Q&A. And at the end of my presentation today, we will be joined today by Jennifer Ford from the American Institutes of Research to discuss the CLSD National Evaluation, and this will be for elementary schools serving grades 3 through 5. So reminders today, please mute your microphone and turn off your cameras during the presentation. This is being recorded and this webinar will be shared. So if you'll please mute your mic and turn off your camera, that will help with our bandwidth. You may ask questions throughout the webinar in the chat. I will do my best to follow along, but I honestly will probably not see it till the end of our conversation where we will have a Q&A where you'll be able to ask your questions via chat or unmute your mic. And this slide deck and a recording of the webinar will be made available following the presentation. So a quick overview of the important dates related to the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant. On Friday, June 11th, the Notice of Funding Availability was released in the DC Register. There are two NOFAs, one for the Birth through 5 grant and one for the K through 12 grant. The request for applications and the application on EGMS was released on last Friday at 12 p.m., so those are both available now. There is a notification of intent to apply form, and that is due next Friday. The application is due in EGMS at 3 p.m. on Monday, August 30th. We do recommend that you submit early. This deadline is firm. There will be no late or incomplete applications reviewed or accepted. And then we anticipate that awards will be announced on or around Friday, September 24th. But if you're writing your notes today, the most important day is Monday, August 30th, and that is when your application is due. And yes, I will be sending, I will add into our chat in just a moment a link to a folder that will have all this information, including the link to the RFA. You can also find that information on Literacy DC, which is our webpage on the OSSI website. So getting into the CLSD grant background. So as previously announced in September 2020, the Department of Education awarded the DC Office of the State Superintendent of Education, OSSI, with a $16 million grant to improve literacy. This is a 5-year grant that will be used to support local education agencies and community-based organizations to strengthen literacy development and instruction from birth through grade 12. And this is very exciting because it is extending all the way through birth through grade 12 to serve our students throughout their lifetime. There's a press release there that will be hyperlinked when you get this slide deck. So the purpose of the CLSD funds is to improve language and literacy development of our state's children and to specifically impact nearly 25,000 district youth, specifically almost 19,000 students who live in qualified opportunity zones. Oh, are you not able to hear me? I'm seeing, has the presentation started? Yes, the presentation has started. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if they can hear me? I can hear. Okay, Anna can hear. Great, thank you. Mr. Ikeem, I'm not sure why you cannot hear me. I apologize for that. Maybe try to leave the meeting and come back. So So back to our grant background. So we're specifically targeting 19,000 students who live in qualified opportunity zones. And so the grant is across 5 years, but this subgrant you are hearing about today is a 4-year subgrant, and it will specifically support early language and literacy skills for children in kindergarten, increased number of children reading on grade level by the end of grade 3, and boost reading proficiency for students grade 3 through high school. In addition to investing in our children, we are also going to be investing in our educators. So we plan to strengthen the education workforce pipeline, develop a statewide literacy coaching program, and enhance licensure requirements to increase all educators' preparedness for literacy instruction. So the why. OSSI is committed to utilizing grant funds to make an impact on outcomes for children and students living in the District of Columbia who are furthest from opportunity. This includes children living in poverty, children with disabilities, and English learners. Over the next 5 years, OSSI will leverage these grant funds to support early language and literacy skills by investing in early childhood education, increase the number of students reading on grade level in grades 3 through high school using assessment data, and improve literacy outcomes for approximately 25,000 disadvantaged and traditionally underserved children and students by targeting qualified opportunity zones and highest need populations. So the CLSD program is a federal program, and this is an overview of the legislation and the source of funding for CLSD. Specifically, it is authorized by the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, sections 2222 through 2225. Great. So the grant funds are therefore subject to regulations and guidance in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act as amended by the Every Student Succeed Act. The CLSD grant requires that 95% of the total funds be disseminated to LEAs and CBOs through competitive subgrant award process, including 40% for organizations serving grades 6 through 12, 40% for organizations serving grades K through 5, and 15% of organizations serving children birth to age 5. And so this pie chart gives you a breakdown of how the CLSD funding will be allocated. For subgrant funding, the total funding available for this award for the K-12 subgrant is $12.8 million over 4 years, subject to continued availability of funding. So OSSI anticipates will award up to 6 total subgrants to eligible entities based on grade bands described below, which are K through 5 and 6 through 12. So each applicant may apply for up to $608,000 per year. The grant period will begin on October 1st, 2021 and end on September 30th, 2025. So for LEAs applying for this grant, you may apply for that $608,000 of funding per year. And so this table summarizes kind of the anticipated dissemination of funds for grades K-5 and 6 through 12. So getting into grant requirements. So who can apply for the CLSD subgrant? So we are making funds, OSSI is making funds available through a competitive process. To apply, an eligible entity must be a District of Columbia LEA serving the highest need and most underserved population of students ranging from kindergarten to grade 12 and the following age and grade bands. So K through 5 and 6 through 12. Eligible entities serving overlapping grade or age and grade bands must submit a separate application for each group. So if you are an LEA who's serving K through 12 and you're interested in using CLSD funds to serve your students K through 12, you'll need to submit 2 applications, one for the K through 5 grade band and one for the 6 through 12 grade band. So these are the definitions of high need. So a high need means an elementary school or middle school in which not less than 50% of the enrolled students are from low-income families, or a high school in which not less than 40% of the enrolled students are children from low-income families. And the definition of low income is below. So this information will just help you to determine your eligibility for the subgrant. So getting into requirements, subgrantees will be required to develop and implement an LEA literacy plan, known as a local literacy plan, provide a full continuum of school-based literacy intervention services with developmentally appropriate components for each grade, collect data on student progress, before and after interventions, and conduct progress monitoring, and submit mid-year and end-of-year programmatic and fiscal reports. Additionally, subgrantees will be required to collaborate with the OSSE Teaching and Learning Grant Manager, providing information such as positive outcome stories, information about special events, share best practices on processes and implementations as part of a city-wide professional learning convenings on literacy, and complete questionnaires regarding grant programming. And so we are hoping to be collaborative, OSSE and the subgrantees, to support you in your development of literacy processes and programming. Reporting requirements. So subgrantees will be required to provide information requested via surveys and other data collection projects using methods identified by OSSE. Submit biannual fiscal reports and any other required information in a timely and efficient manner using methods established by OSSE. File expenditure reports through EGMS within 90 days of the end of each annual budget period, and file final grant activity reports through EGMS within 90 days of the end of the subgrant. Monitoring requirements. So OSSE may utilize several methods to monitor the project, including but not limited to site visits, collection of program and performance data, and financial reports. Grant recipients will also be required to submit a midterm and final report to OSSE illustrating the use of funds and the progress towards goal attainment. Subgrantees are required to attend a biannual literacy convening hosted by OSSE. So again, these requirements for monitoring and reporting are intended to ensure that CLSD funds are being used appropriately, but also to provide an opportunity for collaboration between OSSE and subgrantees and between subgrantee LEAs. So OSSE is excited to announce that as part of the CLSD, we have developed the District of Columbia Comprehensive Literacy Plan, or CLP. This establishes guiding principles for literacy instruction and is rooted in evidence-based strategies. So the CLP was developed by approximately 50 educators and literacy experts with a diverse range of experiences and perspectives. The District of Columbia defines literacy as the ability to talk, listen, read, and write, leading to the ability to communicate and learn. It is a combination of skills and vocabulary, receptive and expressive language, phonological awareness, knowledge of print, comprehension, and printed materials. So the CLP is establishing the guiding principles for literacy instruction rooted in evidence-based strategies. And it further reflects the district's commitment to and belief that all children have the capacity to and can, with the right instruction and supports, become successful readers. So since OSSE recognizes that each LEA has their own unique set of circumstances, we are encouraging all LEAs to develop their own local literacy plan using the CLP as a guide. So as part of the CLSD subgrant application, you are required to submit a local literacy plan that includes a needs assessment to identify gaps in K-12 literacy for at-risk students, English learners, and students with disabilities, stakeholder input, evidence-based strategies for improving literacy outcomes, and a timeline for implementation. So OSSE has created a robust set of resources to assist you in developing your local literacy plans. Some of you actually may have attended sessions that occurred this spring about creating your local literacy plan. Those sessions were recorded and are available on our Literacy DC website, and they're also hyperlinked in this slide deck. So there are 4 sessions about creating your local literacy plan. Session 2 is broken down by birth to age 5 and grades K through 12. So if you are serving both, you can use both of those recorded sessions to assist you. We also have downloadable templates, which I will highlight in just a moment. And John, I will answer your question at the end of the session. I see it in the chat. So I wanted to highlight for you all on our local literacy plan resources, we do have a local literacy plan template, and this will be very helpful to you as you develop this plan as part of the subgrant requirement. You can download a copy from our Literacy DC website. And as you can see from this screenshot, it'll give you a breakdown of what you're of what you're required to do and kind of assist you in this process. You can then upload this document into EGMS to fulfill your LLP requirement for the subgrant application. Additionally, we want to highlight the local literacy plan self-assessment tool. This tool can be used by your organization to determine needs and area of strength in the area of literacy, and it has several rubrics by domain that can help you and your organization to identify where you would like to focus for your LLP. Some of you may have been doing a lot of this work for the other grant funds and requirements happening right now due to COVID-19, et cetera. So you might have some information there that could help you to kind of get organized in this self-assessment. And again, that's included on our Literacy DC website, and it's a downloadable template for you to use. This you would not be required to upload as part of the application, but it would help you to inform your local literacy plan as you're using the template. So getting into allowable use of funds, grant funds may only be used for allowable grant project expenditures. They may not be used for travel expenses for grantee personnel. Funding may be used to cover costs of salaries and benefits of grantee personnel, materials including curriculum and training, and subgrantee must use funds to supplement and not supplant non-federal funds that would otherwise be used for activities authorized under this grant. So we are, OSSI is reviewing this information in advance of subgrant awards so that applicants are fully aware of expectations and can tailor their subgrant applications accordingly. These regulations are determined by federal legislation, so that ESSA legislation, which is hyperlinked on this slide deck below. So for kindergarten through grade 5, these are examples of the allowable activities. So essentially developing and implementing comprehensive literacy instruction plan, which would be related to your LLP. I'll give you a minute to read through that. Don't want to read it all to you. And again, this slide deck will be made available, and this information is in the RFA. This is a continuation of the kindergarten through grade 5 allowable activities. So providing high quality professional development opportunities, training school staff, including principals, specialized instruction support personnel, and other LEA personnel to support, develop, administer, and evaluate high quality kindergarten through grade 5 literacy initiatives, coordinating the involvement of early childhood program staff, and a variety of other educational personnel in the literacy development of children served under this subgrant, and engaging families and encouraging family literacy experiences. So for grades 6 through 12, there's a separate list of allowable activities, although they're similar. So developing and implementing a comprehensive literacy instruction plan for children in grades 6 through 12, training relevant school staff to support, develop, administer, and evaluate high quality comprehensive literacy instruction initiatives for grades 6 through 12, and assessing the quality of adolescent comprehensive literacy instruction as part of a well-rounded education. Oop, I apologize. I'm stuck. There we go. Additionally, providing time for teachers to meet and plan evidence-based adolescent comprehensive literacy instruction and coordinating the involvement of relevant school and educational staff in the literacy development of children served under this subsection. And again, this is coming from the ESSA legislation. So then there are allowable activities for everybody involved in the subgrant, kindergarten grade through grade 12, which includes recruiting and placing, training, and compensating literacy coaches, connecting out-of-school learning opportunities to in-school learning, training families and caregivers, providing a multi-tier system of supports for literacy services, forming a school literacy leadership team, and providing time for teachers to meet to plan comprehensive literacy instruction. So I'll actually give you a minute on that to review. Again, this information will be made available and is listed in the RFA for the K-12 subgrant. Okay, so moving on to the subgrant application. Now that we've kind of had background information, we see what will be required of subgrantees and the potential use of these funds. Let's look at what we need to do to apply for the subgrant. So applications must be submitted through EGMS, which can be found at grants.osce.dc.gov. This is a competitive grant, so all applicants must complete the Central Data Application, Certifications, and Insurances tab in order to submit an application. So you must complete the entire Central Data Application with a valid System for Award Management SAM registration within EGMS. But you specifically want to make sure before, I know there's a quick turnaround, make sure that you are completing the Central Data Application, Certifications, and Assurances tab within EGMS. We will not be accepting email or fax applications. Everything must come through the EGMS system. Once you've submitted an application, you may not revise the application. And then we will be notifying all applicants of the result of their application, whether they are or are not selected for funding. Again, this date is very important, 3 p.m., Monday, August 30th. That is the date applications are due. We will not be accepting any late submissions, so please start early. I hope some of you may have already started. There is EGMS help available, so their contact information is listed there from 7:30 to 5:30. You may send an email or call. So this is just highlighting that central data piece that's required since this is a competitive grant. So when you log on to EGMS, you'll see there's a central data application. You can select view application and it will open it up for you. Please make sure that you complete certifications and assurances. So that's highlighted here. That is required in addition to the application for the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant. So you will be, it'll feel like you're doing two applications within EGMS, but both are required since this is a competitive grant. So here are some EGMS tips from our EGMS team. Save early and often. So EGMS does time out after about 60 minutes of an activity. So make sure you're saving your progress. You can contact the EGMS Help Center for help, but do note that if it is August 30th at 2:55 p.m. and you are sending a request, that will not excuse missing the review submission deadline. So please, again, make sure you start early and contact EGMS if you need assistance. There's information about printing the application. Can't say it enough, start and submit early. And narrative responses may not exceed the stated word count. So within the EGMS app, our exceeded word count is, I believe it's 10,000 for each text box that we have available, but you may also upload information. So for your LLP, you can upload that document using the template. And highlighted again is our EGMS help contact information. So in the EGMS application for the CLSD subgrant for K-12, there are several tabs that you'll see. I don't have a screenshot of it, but as you can see here, you see those blue tabs across the top. That is what I'm describing when I say that it will include the following tabs. So contact information, program selection. So this again, if you're applying across K-12, you'll need to submit 2 separate applications. And for one, you'll select K-5, the other you'll select K-6 to 12. Or if you're only applying for one, you select the relevant program. You'll give an executive summary, program features, which will include that local literacy plan, school selection, understanding of school and student needs, program goals, program implementation and monitoring, including the implementation of literacy and interventions, data collection, evaluation of the program, financial management and sustainability, including an overview of financial management, your proposed budget and program sustainability, and competitive priority points, which we will get into all of this. So the budget. A proposed budget is required as part of the CLSD subgrant application. Your budget narrative should give a description of the proposed use of grant funds, which will reflect a core concept of service coordination and integration. And your narrative should include the cost of all deliverables, including personnel, using the budget categories that are assigned within the grant application. And your proposed budget will not be scored strictly on dollars per student, but will also consider the number of students being served, as well as the intensity and expected impact of the intervention. Oh, I apologize. So one more note on budget. So the budget will actually request or will require you to budget across the entire award period, which crosses 4 fiscal years. So for example, if you were to, in your application budget, budget for the maximum amount of $608,000 per year over, you would do that over 4 years and submit a budget that totals approximately $2.4 million. So you can use that information on slide 14. So again, the budget is being requested in the application to be across 4 fiscal years. So once you get to this point, congratulations. That means you've done a lot of great work to put your application together. To submit your application, you're first going to complete a consistency check to make sure that all parts of the application are completed, and EGMS will highlight for you missing elements that are in red. Once your consistency check is good to go, then you will lock your application and you will submit. So there's not a submit button here, but you'll see the consistency check, lock application. Once you've completed those 2 processes, you'll be able to submit. That submit button will populate on EGMS. There are required documents for the application. So one is that you attended today. That's not listed here, but if you did that, then you've completed step 1. Next is the notification of intent to apply form, which I will again be dropping in the chat a link to a Google folder that has that form. That form can be found within the RFA, and it is hyperlinked here when you get the slide deck. You will then be able to email that completed form to aussie.clsd@dc.gov. And it's a very straightforward form. It should take you just a moment to complete that says that my organization or my LEA is planning to apply. Those forms are due 5 p.m. next Friday, August 13th. Within the application, there is also an administrative approval form, and a local literacy plan is also required, as we discussed. So the application review process. So after you've completed your application in EGMS, the next steps, we'll review those next steps. So applications are due, again, no later than 3 p.m. on Monday, August 30th. Submit through EGMS. Late applications will not be accepted. Please make sure you have that date and you understand that late applications will not be accepted. Applications for the CLSD K-12 subgrant will be reviewed and scored by external reviewers. They will review, score, and rank using the CLSD K-12 subgrant rubric, which we'll review. And we are anticipating announcements of awards to be Friday, September 24th. So a panel or multiple panels of external reviewers will review, score, and rank each application. This review panel will be composed of neutral, qualified, and professional individuals who will be selected specifically for their expertise, knowledge, and/or related experiences. They all must sign a conflict of interest statement. Once they've completed their review, they will make a recommendation for awards using the scoring rubric, which we'll review in a moment. And then the state superintendent of education or a designee will consider recommendations, but all final award decisions will be left to the discretion of the superintendent or the designee. So this is an overview of the K-12 subgrant application rubric. This rubric can be found, it is an appendix in the RFA. It should also be available to you on EGMS. And when I drop that link in the chat for the Google form or the Google folder, you will also be able to download directly a PDF copy of that rubric. This is an overview. So section A will be those program features, totaling 40 points. Section B will be program implementation and monitoring, totaling 50 points. Section C, financial management and sustainability, totaling 10 points. And Section D, priority points. So this is the opportunity to earn 15 points above or in addition to the rest of the rubric. And they are broken down into 3 categories for the K-12 subgrant. So 1 is qualified opportunity zones, 2 is the use of evidence-based literacy interventions, and 3 is the willingness to participate in the national evaluation. So the priority points, so if you serve students attending schools located within qualified opportunity zones, you can be eligible for 5 priority points. If you demonstrate that you will be implementing evidence-based practices and strategies, that could be another potential 5 priority points, and a willingness to participate if selected in the national evaluation of the CLSD program. So more information about the national evaluation can be found in that hyperlinked brochure. At the end of this webinar, again, we will have additional information provided by AIR, and that will be for LEAs that serve grades 3 through 5 only. So you're welcome to stay on at the end of the presentation. So the qualified opportunity zones, this is something that I've mentioned a couple of times throughout the webinar. The Opportunity Zones is a federal program that's created in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And the purpose of the zones is to provide tax incentives for investments, including new businesses and commercial projects in low-income communities. So these tracts are designated by the IRS and the U.S. Department of the Treasury and are not determined by OSSI. Additional information about the qualified opportunity zones can be found in that hyperlink document and will also be in the folder. OSSI has prepared a kind of one-pager overview for you. And this is a list of DCPS and public charter schools that are located within qualified opportunity zones. However, I do want to note that LEAs can qualify for qualified opportunity zone priority points if some of their schools are located within QoZs. So your entire LEA does not need to be within the qualified opportunity zone in order for points to be awarded. And Linda said the consideration is for the school, not by student, unfortunately, but that is a good question. So coming to the end, we have some CLSD resources. Again, the Literacy DC website is your best and the comprehensive literacy plan. There are resources for local literacy plans that can be found on the Literacy DC website. Also, the United States Department of Education, Office of Elementary and Secondary Education has information about the federal comprehensive literacy state development grant. So contact information, if you have questions or concerns about the CLSD as you're working through your application, the main point of contact will be me. Again, my name is Megan Dumont. I'm a program analyst in the Division of Teaching and Learning. You can reach me at ossi.clsd@dc.gov or by phone at 727-3666. And again, Literacy DC is a great place to find this information. Okay, so we now are at our question and answers. So I'm going to, oops, I apologize. Let me hit escape here so I can actually see if there are any chats. So going back up in the chat, I see there's a question from John. If we are an LEA that bridges both grade bands, is it possible for one grade band to be awarded and another denied? Could both be awarded each for up to the $608,000 per year? So right now, that would be up to the discretion of how the external reviewers score and rank the applications, and then the final discretion up to OSSI. So yes, that is technically a possibility that one of your grade bands could be awarded and the other could be denied. We would not review the LEAs as one. In that situation, it would be two separate applications and both would be reviewed under the guidelines of the appropriate rubric. So I hope that that is helpful information. So yes, again, Linda, consideration for schools not in qualified opportunity zones, but students living. For the QoZs, that will be just by school, not at the student level. So there is not. I'm not sure who this question is from, but it says, we are a new school opened last year. A school next door to us is listed on the QoZ list. So this, these are listed as census tract. If you could put the name of your school, I could actually look into that. If you are in fact a brand new school, this list is very recently updated though, and again, it is not set by OSSI. It is set by the designated tracts. So it is possible for schools to be next door or across the street from each other. Oh, no problem. Capitol Village, thank you. It is possible for schools to be on the same street or across the street from each other and not both be QoZs. But I will double check that for you and get back to you. Let me find where I am in the chats. OSSI is anticipating awarding 6 subgrants in the K-12 subgrant across K-12. So we are anticipating 6 subgrants total for the K-12 subgrant. So a better way to say that would be, I guess, 6 LEAs in total, not 6 K-12 or 6 K-5 and 6 12. So not 12 in total. We're saying 6 in total. And that will be the final designation will be up to OSSI's discretion. So a smaller school applying for less funding be scored lower? No, the funding that would be based on how the external reviewers review your information, your budget narrative, and what you're proposing using the rubric. So a smaller school could apply for less funding, and they will be reviewed as such. Our teacher stipends allowable expenses. CLSD does allow for personnel funding, so that should be an allowable expense. Excuse me. Need a sip of water. An LEA in Ward 8, but didn't see our school listed in QoZ. Again, I know that that is frustrating to see, but those QoZs are not set by OSSI. They are set by the Opportunity Zone federal program. So it is not by ward. It is by these specific census tracts. So it is possible for a Ward 8 school, but Early Childhood Academy PCS, I can double check for you as well regarding the QoZ, but I do want to just emphasize again that the QoZ is a priority point. So it is not a requirement for the application. It is just an add-on for the scoring for the external reviewers. So I do not want you to feel discouraged to apply if you're not listed, if you see in your school listed at the QoZ, you are still encouraged to apply. It's only 5 points, but I do understand how that is surprising. And Wendy, are you also with one of the schools listed above? I see. Who would we reach out to for more understanding or not one? Again, this is not set by OSSI, but I'm happy to double check for you. Wendy, are you also from Capital Village or Early Academy PCS? I'm sorry, excuse me, Early Childhood Academy. Yes, okay, yes, okay. So I will double check those two, but yes, that is not set by us. So the best I can do is try to get the information for you. Again, so actually I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment so that I may drop in the chat the link for this Google folder. So in that Google folder, and I will start sharing again. There are several resources that hopefully will be helpful to you that I discussed today and that are hyperlinked in the slide deck. There's a PDF version of the scoring rubric, the self-assessment tool, the final RFA document as a PDF, the local literacy plan template, the notification of intent to apply form, which you can download and complete and then email back to me. This PDF has a full breakdown of information about the qualified opportunity zone schools. So I hope that will be helpful to several of you who are asking about that, and then the roster of public charter schools. Let me return to my PowerPoint. JM, if a school only serves up to 3rd grade, would they still qualify for the national evaluation for 3 to 5 grade? JM, will your school be adding grades on? I'm not 100, no. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm not sure if one of my colleagues from, oh, I can't, yes. Go ahead. I apologize. I'm looking at the chat on my phone, so I'm not seeing everyone's name right away. So EF, please go ahead and unmute yourself and answer. If you can.
Hi, this is
Hi.
Ellie Fullbeck from AIR. So we would need 2 of the 3 focal grades, so at least grades 3 and 4 or grades 4 and 5 to participate in the impact study. And I just want to clarify, the national evaluation includes a couple of different studies. So one is an implementation study that everyone will participate in. So all 6 of the subgrantees would participate in that, regardless of whether they also participated in the impact study. And then my colleague Jen Ford, I think in just a moment, will share a little bit about the impact study, and that's the one that's focused on just grades 3, 4, and 5. In this case, for this particular question that JM asked, we would not be able to include your school in it or your LEA in it, because we would need to have at least 2 of the focal grades.
Thank you so much. So yes, and I appreciate that clarification as well, that there are 2 prongs to several prongs to this national evaluation. So for my presentation, are there any additional questions about the CLSD K-12 subgrant for OSSI? And again, this is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out. You all probably also have my email from the invite that I sent today, so please feel free to reach out with any additional questions that you may have. And I will give you all just a minute to see if there are any more questions before I pass it over to AIR and to Jen Ford to review her materials for today. Oh, so no. So schools, the qualified opportunity zone, thank you for asking, Alexis. The qualified opportunity zones are a priority point. So the qualified opportunity zones, if we're looking at the overview of the rubric, will give you 5 additional points, but you are not required to be a qualified opportunity zone to apply. So again, you are not required to be in a qualified opportunity zone to apply. If you are not listed in the QoZ, you are still able to apply as long as you are eligible. Thank you, Alexis. The qualified opportunity zone is just a priority point. Thank you for clarifying, because I don't want anyone to leave today thinking they're unable to apply when they are. Any additional questions before we move on? And again, here's my contact information. Okay, wonderful. So Jen, I believe we can move on to this conversation about the national evaluation. And again, this should say National Evaluation Impact Study. I apologize for that.
Thank you, Megan.
Yes.
Yeah, and are you happy to share your screen? Great.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I'll ask you to click the next slide as needed. Again, my name is Jennifer Ford, and I work for the American Institutes for Research, and our team is conducting a national evaluation of this comprehensive literacy evaluation. And my presentation today is specific to those LEAs that are including, like Ellie said, grades 3 through 5, the planning to include grades 3 through 5 in their application. And it also requires multiple schools. So as you think about your plans for this subgrant application, this presentation is specific to those that are including at least 2 elementary schools with grades 3 through 5 in their CLSD plans. Or clarification, 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 also works. Thank you, Ellie. So moving on, I've got. So how will it work? So just as Megan has gone over how the application for your district, go ahead and click next slide, sorry. You see on screen, first step of our participation in the impact study is basically just following along with what your state or DC is doing as part of the subgrant competition for this grant. The first year of the grant is the application year, this right now, and then you will receive funding should you win over the years 2 through 5, and it goes through those school years. LEAs that serve low-income, high-need students in diverse geographic areas are prioritized to receive these subgrants. That's true across all states that have received this grant. And we're asking DC to help us communicate with you the opportunity to participate in the impact study, which is what we're here to talk about today, which only includes a subset of the subgrantees across the country. So let's click to the next slide. So how will this study work? Just as we talked about today, you all were LEAs will apply to receive the subgrant based on the criteria set by your state. Thinking about the impact study, which I'm here to talk about today, LEAs with 4 or more elementary schools are best suited to participate, and districts or LEAs with 2 or more elementary schools are also eligible. Just repeating what we've said so far. And what we'll need to know is that your LEA is interested and willing to participate in the impact study. And Megan mentioned that for DC there are some priority points for those that indicate that on their application. So what does it mean to participate? States will review your application, and based on the eligibility requirements of that they have set, that's separate from us, has no impact on what we're going to do. And as they do that, the states will determine the number of subawards, 6 in this case, and who is eligible to receive those funds. Among those 6 that are awarded, some of you might be interested in participating in the impact study, and we will be here to work with you on your participation and finalize participation once the awards have been made. So the fourth step of participation in the impact study would be nothing beyond, up until this point, we haven't talked about anything beyond what you would normally do. What we will do on top of the application process that has been discussed today is we will be including elementary schools that you volunteer to participate in a lottery. And in that lottery, let's do some animations here. Did you click? Our study team will randomly assign, so say your LEA includes 4 elementary schools in this example. Our study team will randomly assign 2 of those schools to receive the funding in the first 2 years of the subgrant, and 2 of them to receive funding in the second 2 years of the subgrant. That is the lottery design of this study. And I just want to note at this point that as a subgrantee, you retain full control over which elementary schools you include to receive CLSD funding. The timing of the funding is what is determined by the lottery and the participation in the impact study. And I'll pause right there for some questions as I get a sip of water.
I see a question about the priority points. So you have to be able, yes, so you must be eligible to receive the priority points for the national evaluation. But that does not mean you can't apply for the CLSD subgrant from OSSE. You just will not receive those priority points. But please apply just if you are eligible and interested.
Thank you. All right, let's click and let's turn to benefits and reasons to participate. So on screen, you see a timeline. The first thing that would happen if you were to participate in the impact study is that we would conduct a lottery for the elementary schools with the grades 3 through 5, 3 to 4, to receive, randomly assign those to fall into the first funding group sites or the second funding group sites. And what that means by first and second funding group sites, if you click once again, you'll see that in these upcoming 2 school years, those schools randomly assigned to receive funding in the first 2 years, receive their funding and implement their CLSD funded activities as planned using that funding. And because again, and the schools that are randomly assigned, the elementary schools that are randomly assigned to the second funding group would not be eligible for spending those funds until the 3rd year of the grant, seen here in this illustration. And so our request of districts, or sorry, LEAs that participate and the schools that participate in this impact study, we ask that you abide by the lottery results. We also are going to ask that you participate in some surveys as part of the impact study. And those surveys are of principals, literacy leads, and teachers at 2 points during at 1 point during each school year of the first 2 years of this study. Let's talk about the benefits. So there are multiple benefits of this rollout of implementation. Those early implementers receive the opportunity to learn about and apply effective strategies and programs and apply those to the future implementers. And this is, again, this is consistent with continuous improvement efforts that many districts have currently been working on. So the second bullet will be providing financial resources to elementary schools that participate in the study. They'll receive $15,000 for each participating elementary school, regardless of which funding group they're assigned to, as part of our study design. And I can talk some more about that compensation in a later slide. But it's $15,000 per elementary school that participates in the impact study. Okay, and let me illustrate the point that there's minimal disruptions. In all cases, LEAs will retain full control over which schools. We're not deciding which schools you participate in the impact study or include in your plans. It's just the timing of the funding within the elementary schools that participate in the impact study that the lottery impacts. So again, let me go over what the requirements are to participate in the impact study. You obviously have to meet the state determined eligibility criteria for the grant, which is what everyone on this call is hopefully applying for. You have to apply for the subgrant. And we would appreciate if you would indicate the willingness to participate in the impact study. And then you have to have at least 2 or more elementary schools included in your subgrant. And like we said, 4 elementary schools or more are best suited for the study, and we would need at least 2 of those target grades in your application.
And for our application, I'll just jump in. This is Megan. That you will be able to just indicate in your application your willingness. You will not have to include a letter of interest.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing the last point for being eligible for the CLSD impact study is you have to receive the CLSD grant. So click again, and you'll see the only oh, it's a little bit off from my slide, but the only 2 bullets, the only 2 pieces of requirements for the impact study that are separate for what you should already be doing are those where you indicate your willingness. Well, I guess it's part of your application, but your willingness to participate in the impact study, and you have to have at least 2 or more elementary schools included in your subgrant. So I mentioned earlier that each elementary school will receive $15,000 for participating, and that money comes from the study. The study team will be providing that $15,000 per elementary school. Since elementary schools, LEAs with 4 or more elementary schools are best suited, you can click again. That could be something like $60,000 on top of your, again, this funding is on top of the subgrant funding you would receive from winning the subgrant. And your LE has discretion over how to use these funds. We can talk more about the specifics and what you might think of and in a separate conversation, but there are minimal limitations to what you're allowed to spend these dollars on. So next steps, let us know that you're interested by indicating that on your application. There's a link on the screen of where you can find more information, and I believe that is also included in the application if you're looking at that section. And then let me pause and see if there are any questions for our team. If there are no questions, I wondered if Ellie, if you wanted to jump in and add anything to what I went over today.
Only just to please reach out if you're an LEA that has 2 or more elementary schools that serve at least 2 of the focal grades, and you're considering indicating interest in participating in the impact study, and you have any questions, Jen or myself would be happy to find some time to connect with you and address any questions that you might have. And we thank everybody for considering this opportunity.
Questions? Oh, and there's the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody, for attending the webinar today. Are there any additional questions about either the CLSD National Evaluation or the OSCE CLSD K-12 Subgrant Application? Give you a moment. Are there any additional? Wonderful. Well, again, feel free to reach out if you have questions about the impact study to Ellie or Jen. And if you have any questions about your application, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, this is Megan Dumond from the Division of Teaching and Learning. And that is all for our webinar today. So thank you all so much. And I will stop sharing my screen and I will stop our recording. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. The resources, again, can be found in the Google folder that was shared. And this webinar recording and the slide deck will be made available. Thank you all so much for participating. Have a great day.